I want to talk today about a concept that's kind of tricky to put into words, but I suppose the easiest way to describe it would be to paint with impact, give the paintings a little bit of attitude, just that little bit of something that separates it from the rest. So I'm not going to paint white fluffy clouds. I'm not going to copy anyone's style as such. It's very much free, fast flowing style of painting, and to really get the most out of watercolour, so using plenty of water, plenty of paint, allowing the paint to move around and just get real maximum effect, maximum light and dark, and really to give the painting that something that separates it from the rest. So I'm going to paint a slightly unusual subject as well. It's like a broken old boat on the Medway estuary in Kent in the UK, and I've just very simply sketched it out. And this is based on a painting I did on, or that I uploaded onto Instagram a little while ago, and I had quite a few comments on it and people kind of like the style, so I thought I'd have a go at painting something for everybody over here. And so I've just sprayed some water across the sky, not too much, just a bit out the mist bottle, just to get everything moving around. And I've added some ultramarine blue. I've got my board at about 20-degree angle, just to allow the paint to flow, move around. And so just adding the blue and touching it with some water. Just picked up some cobalt and getting the paint quite wet as well, and then bringing that in, laying it down quite wet wash, and I'll touch back into that with some thicker, darker paint. I've added some raw sienna as well, and that will grey the mixture off. And so working very quickly, very loosely, using a large sable brush. And now touching that paint with some water, allowing that to run together. And it's already starting to make some interesting marks. And I picked up some more raw sienna. And now I can lay that in using the side of the brush, allowing the paint to break up on the paper there. I'm using a sheet of Milford paper made by St Cuthbert's Mill. And some more ultramarine blue, and some burnt sienna. And now that's just made a grey. And so getting a touch darker now, and just laying that in, letting it run together, move around. And I'm looking for quite a lot of impact in the sky. Like I said at the start, not painting white fluffy clouds or anything like that. It's been done a million times before. I want to try and create something slightly unusual. So I'm not thinking of cloud shapes. Because you know the context of the scene, and you know that it's going to be sky and land and a bit of water and some distance, you can really get away with being quite inventive with a sky. So really just go for it. Look at the shapes that form, laying some dark paint over the top and allowing it all to run, and see where that's catching some of the wash that's there already. That's running together and it's running down. It's hopefully going to look like there's some rain off in the distance. Just picked up some more blue, more burnt sienna. I can lay that in over the top as well. And so building up layers while it's all wet, and really going for something quite unusual, I think. But it is still going to read as a sky. So it's borderline abstract, I suppose, with the shapes that are forming. But if you really go out and you observe when you're out and around, out and about walking, just look up at the sky. You don't always see white fluffy clouds. get to see some quite amazing shapes really if you just take the time to have a look. And now just picked up some clean water and just soften that area there and the cloud in the middle, but taking some care to leave some white areas behind. That's going to be the light in the painting. And drag some of that paint around as well and bring it all the way down to the horizon. So I've really got some bold, slightly unusual shapes going on in the sky there, but that's perfectly fine. It's exactly what I'm looking for. And now I've just got some more raw sienna, mix that in with the grey, and I can start adding some land. And again, the same kind of technique as the sky, so we want to keep it all cohesive, so everything's painted in a similar style. So just dragging the paint around. I want to take a little bit of care not to touch too much of that sky wash. Don't want it running into the land too much and just washing away. So I just leave that bead sitting there on the horizon. And now touch a little bit of dark into the land as well, and allowing that to run and just laying it in here and there. Now trying to get some impact into the land as well, and bring in some blue so that'll act as a little bit of a shadow area. And now I can allow that mix, or that wash I should say, to fully dry. Okay, I'm going to go back in and add some distance, so just a little squirt over the horizon line there with the mist bottle. Not too much water because I don't want it to run away, but go back into some of that sky colour, that blue grey that's left there, and bring that across. Very straightforward. Don't want too much going on in the distance, just a suggestion that there's something there. And I can give that another quick mist there. And I'll just pick up some cobalt blue. And so really the lightest of touches. And on the Medway estuary there's a lot of industrial buildings off in the distance. And so there's chimneys and whatever it is really. And so I can just suggest that very loosely. Don't have to paint everything you see if you've got a photograph or something like that. If it's off in the distance, you don't have to be tied down to every little detail that's there. You can just very loosely create your own composition. Make sure you've got some little bits going on everywhere you need it to be, essentially. So move things around. And so I'm just finding little gaps in the clouds there and just putting a tiniest little touch there. So there's some space over on the left, so just a tiny little hint that there's something there. And so keeping all of that simple in the distance, don't need any detail at all. But now I can start working on that boat. So I've picked up some blue and some burnt sienna, and I've left it on the blue side, but I'll touch that into the boat. And then I'll go back and I'll just vary the mix the whole time. And so slightly more burnt sienna in that mix now, so it's a little bit browner. And then go back in, more blue, more burnt sienna. And so even though it's a tiny little area in the painting, it's the main focal point, so I'll get quite a lot of variation in there. And so just touching in with some more dark. And there are little grasses and things growing up around the bottom of the boat, so a broken line along the bottom there. And it's a boat that's completely collapsed, so just have that tapering away into pretty much nothing. And again, touch back in with some darker paint, allowing it to run. And it's quite nice painting subjects like this. It's a little bit out of the ordinary. It's not really nice, I suppose, but it has got impact. It's got a little bit of attitude about it. And now just bring the line of that boat out there, connect it in with the land. Still keeping the brush strokes very loose. And I can start bringing the shape all the way across to connect left and right where possible, without having any sort of solid lines, so to speak. And so just bring some texture across the land, and there's a small broken kind of fence type thing, or little mooring posts, whatever they are, and I can suggest those very simply. And kind of almost treating the land as one big wash as well, but just lots of broken lines connected here and there. And the whole time just having a little look, painting a little bit and then stepping back. And I'll just grab some more blue, more burnt sienna, and now touch that back into the wet wash of the boat and allow that to run down as well, and that create some more variation in there. So it's quite subtle, but it's still there, and I can use some of that colour as well and drop that in to where I put those little mooring posts, and just touch some of that colour across the land as well. So just building up layers quite slowly, but just working around it. And now over on the left hand side there's some more posts. They're all very water and weather worn, so they can be quite rough, and vary the colour of those a bit as well. So I'll just touch some more burnt sienna in there. And just trying to find a shape, don't want it to be symmetrical. And now a mixture of sort of thick paint, wet paint, allowing that to touch, run. Doesn't matter if you get little runbacks and cauliflowers, all of that kind of thing adds to the effect with this style of painting. And so same as on the right hand side really, just building up some layers and touching back into it with darker paint. So I've just got a mixture of everything there in the palette there really, and I can just add the mast on the boat, and because it's an old broken boat, so the mast can be very loosely put in. Can have some little broken areas on there, and then touch back in with some dark paint as well and allow that to run down. And even where the distance is still slightly wet, you can see some of that mast has run into it. That's perfectly fine as well. It's a very loose kind of semi-abstract way of painting anyway, so it's kind of almost anything goes. So if you get something happen and you think it's a mistake, don't worry about it, just go with it, keep working through. It's always better to go with something that might be a mistake rather than trying to cover it up. Always looks better than if you stop, spend a lot of time trying to correct a mistake. You'll end up with something that looks far worse. So just go with it. Just have faith in the overall process and just enjoy it really. It's the best advice that I can give, is to not worry about any mistakes that happen, not worry about trying to copy any exact details. If something happens, then just go with it, allow the watercolour to do its thing. I'm just going to add just a suggestion that there's a few boats off in the distance there. So a very simple, just a very simple line for some masts and a few marks across the bottom there. Don't need to add any reflections, it's way off in the distance and it's low tide in the estuary anyway. A few more little marks just over on the left hand side there. I think we're nearly there. I think it just needs a few more little dark marks just down in the foreground to tie everything together. And there's some little rocks and things just going off out there in the estuary. A few more dark marks just here and there, just dotted around. Suggestion that little stones and little bits of flotsam and jetsam or whatever it is. Drop a little bit more dark paint into those posts, allow that to run down as well. And a little touch across the bottom of the boat. Just strengthen that mast there as well. And I think I'll leave it at that. Okay, that's a nice simple little demo there. I hope you get something from that. I really enjoy painting this style of thing. It's kind of my go-to style really. Paintings with a lot of impact, a lot of light, strong darks. Really like abstract shapes in the sky, unusual looking clouds. It really adds a bit of interest, hopefully make the viewer question what they're looking at and really take a good look, try and work out what's going on. I think that's always the most interesting paintings are like that, for me anyway. So have a go at this style, let me know what you think. Tag me on social media and all of that stuff as usual. It's always good to see everyone's paintings. Check me out on Patreon if you haven't already. I've got lots of exclusive content over there and you can ask me questions, you can request videos on certain subjects and artists and that kind of thing, and if I can then I'll do a video for my Patreon followers. Anyway, I'll be back again next week, so have a great week everyone and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.